What's up, guys? So I have a really good Prismatic Warlock build for you. It's going to just have really solid kind of everything. It's going to have solid ad clearing, solid damage, solid survivability. It does not have like exceptionally crazy of any of these things, but overall it is like a very, very solid build. I've been running it for the entire release of the DLC so far. I've ran it through like the intro part of the raid and stuff, but my group hasn't really gotten into the raid too much yet. But overall, absolutely great build. You're going to have a lot of damage resistance and attacks shooting off of you like a mobile sentry gun. So we'll just get started here. First off, for a super, I run Needle Storm. You'll see why in a second, but I would recommend either Needle Storm or the new Song of Flame Solar Super. And then straight into your abilities, you're going to want to run Phoenix Dive. That's a pretty big part of this. You can run Well if you really want to, or Rift, sorry. You can run a Healing Rift or whatever if you want to, but I would highly, highly recommend Phoenix Dive for this. The jump is your choice, of course. Then we're going to be running Penumbral Blast. Just for the freezing, you're going to be getting that melee up fairly quickly with this build, and it's just going to be nice for freezing things. If you're doing harder activities, it's really nice for freezing champions and whatnot. Then we are going to be running the Storm Grenade. And for aspects, we're going to be running Weaver's Call and Hellion. So, of course, if you guys don't know, the new solar aspect for Warlocks is called Hellion. It is going to give you kind of like an Arc Soul, but solar, and it lobs a little mortar out. It's basically just a little ball of like lava, so to speak. And it's really nice because it causes solar ignitions very quickly. And it just does a pretty good amount of damage, and it has a lot of splash damage to it, so it's really nice to have. It'll help you clear ads really fast in big groups and stuff, so really solid overall. Then for the fragments, we're going to be running Facet of Dawn, Protection, Ruin, Command, Purpose, and Balance. So starting at the beginning, Dawn, that's just going to make us radiant when we hit stuff with our powered melee, which is really nice. The Protection is just for protection. It's going to give you damage reduction when you're around a bunch of enemies, more so when you're transcendent. Ruin is just going to increase the damage and size of the explosions from shattering frozen targets and for your solar ignitions, which is nice because you're going to be having a pretty good amount of both of those things, so really, really nice. This one is more or less just it's just kind of nice to have. You could swap it for something else if you really wanted to. This is just my preference here, but anytime you freeze an enemy with your Penumbral Blast, that's going to reload your currently equipped gun, which is quite nice. Purpose is going to give you a buff depending on your super. So because I'm running Needle Storm here, it's going to give me Woven Mail, but if you were to run that new Solar Super Song of Flame, it would give you Restoration. Both are really nice. Both are going to help with your survivability quite a bit, so either or doesn't really matter, but it's just nice to have regardless. And then Balance is just going to give you extra melee and grenade energy for defeating targets with either light or dark damage, so as long as you're dealing a little bit of both damage, you're just going to get a bunch of extra melee and grenade energy. Really nice, again. And then jumping into the guns, of course, it's, a known thing with all of my builds now. Guns don't really matter. I don't usually make builds that revolve much around weapons, so you can use whatever you like. I'm enjoying using the Call right now. It's the new sidearm with the DLC. I think it's pretty solid if you get a decent roll on it. I'm, of course, running my Mida Mini tool. You've probably seen this in some other builds as well. Pretty solid SMG, and right now it's in for anti-barrier. And then the Microcosm. This thing is absolutely disgusting. If you have it, I'd recommend using it. It does just a stupid amount of damage to bosses, mini bosses, ads, shields, everything. It's just ridiculously good heavy this season, so would recommend using it. It potentially is going to get a nerf in the future. Who knows? Wouldn't surprise me. Getting into the stats, of course, max resilience and discipline. This is going to be a build kind of revolving around your grenade, as some of you already probably see the exotic here, Getaway Artist. So max discipline and resilience is nice. Of course, if you had to pick one, go for the resilience, damage reduction above everything else. Then next, recovery. You want those three as high as you can get them, but I would prioritize them in that order that I said, so keep that in mind. Then getting into the helmet mods, I just run heavy and special ammo finder along with a harmonic siphon. So for me, That just works good with the call because it does do really good against all the kind of smaller red bar enemies. It generally kills them in 1 or 2 shots, so you can get a lot of orbs of power off of that. Then into the actual exotic gauntlets, the Getaway Artist. These things are basically what makes or breaks the build. Doesn't work without them. So this is going to allow you to consume your arc grenade and gain an arc soul, and it's going to make you amplified. So really, really nice because there's a mod in the artifact that's going to work great with the amplification in the sense that it's going to give you a bunch of damage reduction. I'll show you that in just a second. But on the gauntlets themselves for the mods, I run Kinetic Loader, just increase reload speed of kinetic weapons. That works good for both the Microcosm Heavy, because it is technically a kinetic, as well as neither one of my other guns. So that's mostly just for the Microcosm right now. But if you run another kinetic weapon, obviously it works for those too. Then I'm running Impact Induction and Focusing Strike, both of which are when you cause damage with a powered melee, because you're not really using your actual grenade very often. You can, but it's not going to be very often, because when your Arc Soul hits an enemy, it is going to refund grenade energy. So most of the time before your Arc Soul is up, you will actually have another grenade up for another one, but there's usually not that much downtime in between them. So if your Arc Soul's going crazy and you can get your grenade up a bunch, you could throw a grenade in between charges of your Arc Soul, but most of the time I just go for the Arc Soul. I don't worry about throwing my grenades, so generally that's why I run the powered melee mods there. Getting into the chest armor, I'm just running Sniper Resistance and Kinetic Reserves. Kinetic Reserves for the Microcosm, and of course Sniper Resistance for the Sniper Resistance. On the boots, I run Recuperation, Absolution, and Invigoration. This is just going to give you health, this is going to reduce all your ability cooldowns, and this is going to give you extra towards melee, so really not bad, all just for picking up orbs. Onto the Warlock Bond, I run Outreach, Bomber, and Distribution. Outreach, I mean, these are all straightforward, these are most of my builds, but this is going to give you extra melee cooldown for using your class ability, which you're going to be doing a lot. This is going to do the same thing but for a grenade, and this is going to do the same thing but for all of your abilities, just for using it in your targets, which you're going to be doing a pretty decent amount of the time with this build as well. And then from there, we will jump straight into the artifact. This is what my artifact looks like. Feel free to copy and paste it. Obviously, run whatever you need for the activity you're doing here for champions. Then I run Winning Hand for that new call sidearm, because it generally always rolls with Winning Hand. Not generally, it does always. Then I wasn't sure what else to throw here, so I just threw in Elemental Charge. Then we got Press the Advantage, Elemental Siphon, which that's pretty nice. Just gives you a free element to pick up, so if you're using something like the Microcosm or something, you get that element to pick up. The big one here, though, is going to be Galvanic Armor. This is going to cause you to take pretty significantly reduced damage while amplified. I've noticed, I mean, it takes probably like twice as many hits to kill you, just generally speaking. It's a pretty good amount of reduced damage, and when you consume your grenade to get that Arc Soul from the exotic that we're using, you're going to have that going. So you're going to be amplified most of the time with this build, which means you're going to have a lot of just extra damage reduction, so that's really, really nice. Other than that, I'm running this for the extra radiance, so when I pick up an orb, it's also going to make you radiant. So you'll have damage reduction and kind of a bit of damage bonus from the radiance here. And then I just went ahead and threw on the Void just for when I'm playing with other people that are causing weakening effects or whatever. It works pretty good. I do not have the last row of my artifact unlocked here, but if I did, I would probably go for either Shield Crush or Transference, probably. This isn't really Void. I know the Void stuff's pretty mean right now too, but for this specific build, that's probably what I would end up going for, is those two there at the end. But overall, that's what it looks like. For the rotation of the build, it's very, very straightforward. All you're going to do is consume your grenade and then Phoenix Dive, or vice versa. It doesn't really matter what order you do it in. You just kind of want to do them fairly close to each other. That way you have both of those little sentry guns going at the same time. Other than that, there's not really like a solid way to play this build. That's it, as long as you have those going as much as you can. So, and then of course, in this kind of background gameplay footage that you'll see here, I am like 34 power level under, so we're almost 40 power level under here, and you can see it's doing pretty fucking solid. Survivability is good, damage is good. Of course, a lot of the damage is going to come from the microcosm when you see me milking the boss and whatnot, but the build is good, and that is in, once again, a solo expert lost sector where I'm almost 40 power level under. So you can imagine doing other activities where you're a lot closer to power level. It's going to do much, much, much better. I mean, you're going to get a ton of solar ignitions and just all kinds of stuff. So when you're doing especially activities that are more on power level or just not quite so, you know, above where this was, it's going to shine way more than you see in the video. This is just a pretty significant under-leveled activity to kind of showcase what it's capable of. But overall, I mean, I'm not going to call it the best build for Prismatic. I still have some unlocking and some testing to do. But right now, this is the build that I've been running for pretty much the entirety of all the new content and stuff, and it's gotten me through all of it really, really easy. So if you guys liked the video, consider giving it a like, consider subscribing. It would mean a lot to me. If you have any recommendations on something I would change, or you would change, or whatever, go ahead and drop it in the comments below. May or may not read it, may or may not reply, but I probably will. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.